what's going on in the world, specifically regarding El Salvador and now having Bitcoin as legal tender, and what he thinks, how he thinks that will affect the economy, not just in El Salvador, but more broadly around South America and also around the world. What sort of reaction do you think we'll have going forward from that?
Yeah, so countries in Latin America, I've been flagging this for a while. I figured it was going to be somebody in Latin America. I wasn't sure whether it was going to be Costa Rica or whether it was going to be Panama, but it ended up being El Salvador. What historically the problem is they've had a series of bad governments, tons of corruption, and they tend to not have enough exports to be able to drive their economy, so their currencies keep collapsing. And that's basically robbing the wealth of the people. So then they try and dollarize, so they try and hold dollars as well. But the problem is these countries don't get access to enough dollars. So it becomes really hard to have access to money and the kind of things that we all take for granted. So this idea behind having Bitcoin, the other thing that they do is they tend to work in the United States or elsewhere and send money home to their parents, remittances. And that's a very important source of capital for these countries. But somebody takes like 10% out of the middle or 20% out of the middle. So Panama have kind of realized that maybe offering Bitcoin as part of the financial system means that people can save in it. So that protects them from their own currency or the dollar going up or down. It allows them to transfer money amongst each other and not have a highly developed banking system, because you kind of solve it overnight. Because with something like Strike, which they're going to be using, I can transfer $1 to a person. It just uses Bitcoin as the transmission mechanism. So it means you end up with a digital banking system pretty fast. And that gets rid of all the middlemen and the costs and the need to build out an expensive banking system. So there's a bunch of things that I think are really useful. El Salvador's small, but it's the start. And we saw people in the Brazilian parliament, Argentina, Panama, Paraguay,
Mexico,
all looking at the same thing, because they're all plagued by these issues.
But I want to know what you think America's reaction will be to this Bitcoinization if it comes from Latin America first. I understand it won't massively affect their economy, definitely not overnight, but I want to know if you think there'll be any counter reaction to that.
I mean, they're not abandoning the dollar. What they're basically doing is adopting this as a banking and saving system. So I don't think the US has anything to fear in this. How do the central bank digital currencies fit in? Well, we don't know, because the US would still, or Europe or China or the UK, still control who gets the money through the CBDC. In this case, it's a non-bank controlled layer, so people can't get in the way. So they can't say, we're blocking Salvadorians from sending money home, right? Which is what we do to China and we do to Russia, we do to Iran, we do to Venezuela. So it kind of does change that game. And XRP, they're also working on this solution too. And I think they're all the same thing, meaning they will all exist together, because it's a multi-project world out there, and all of these systems will end up being interoperable. So maybe some money that starts in one country starts using XRP rails, but ends up using Bitcoin rails and then CBDC rails, and we won't even notice. Because in the end, we don't know. I don't know what computer you're using, what Wi-Fi you're using, what internet type you're using, what modem you're using, what software, nothing, right? I just connect and I'm talking to you. And that's what money's going to be like. So, you heard my crypto story. So I invested, first time was 2012. It went up 100% in a month. And I was like, holy shit. And I sold it. Then I bought some again in 2013. And I held that through all the way to 2017. And then I sold out too early into the bull market because there was having these Bitcoin forks going on. I'm like, I don't understand any of this. I'm out. I thought, could this whole thing fail? Could it all move to a different chain? I don't know.
Yeah, Bitcoin Cash nearly overtook at one point, didn't it?
That's right.
Very close, yeah.
And I'm like, no, I don't know. It's beyond my skill set. And then I was out. I've been following the space for a while, and I was out of it until 2019, when a good friend of mine, Dan Tapiero, who you can see, there's some great interviews on our YouTube channel or on Real Vision, basically persuaded me all over again. Hey, listen, Raoul, it's time to get back in again. So I started doing the work on it again, and then the point came. I always knew that the macro world of investing with too much debt and these aging demographics and all the problems in the financial system, the next recession, they were going to meet crypto, and they were going to become the same thing because crypto was the solution and this was the problem. And so as soon as the recession came, so crypto collapsed, and I'm like, okay, this is the signal. This is the chance to get in, because the most likely outcome is this explodes higher. So I started buying back in March last year, and I was all Bitcoin. I was up until maybe June, July, I was still investing in other stuff. And then I said, look, this is the single best opportunity we're ever going to be given in our lives. And I'm going all in. So every single penny of cash that I had, I put into Bitcoin. I mean, 100% of everything I had, and anything I earned that was excess cash, I put into this. So this was not a small bet. This was like, fuck it, I'm doing it.
Selling your bet.
Because, everything I'd ever studied about, the macro and crypto itself, this was the time. If it was going to happen, now was it. And the chart pattern was great. So I then, by about September, I started realizing that if you ever talk about anything not Bitcoin, you get attacked on Twitter, where I've got quite a big presence. And I'm like, why is that? So I started kind of observing that, and I could see that there was a feeling of threat, because these are built around network effects, and you're trying to stop anybody else eating away from your network. Even though the reality is the whole space is growing and it's not Bitcoin, but there was this prevailing narrative. So that got me starting to think, and I start looking at the charts of Ethereum thinking, Ethereum's going to outperform Bitcoin. So then I start digging in. I usually start with a chart. I see that chart and go, okay, I'm going to do some work on Ethereum. So I start doing some work on Ethereum, and I figured out that Ethereum followed the Metcalfe's law adoption model. And as far as I knew, nobody had done this work before, or not knowingly. I hadn't seen a lot of it with Ethereum. I'd seen it in Bitcoin, and figured out that they looked identical, that it's just all about network adoption. And then I started moving into Ethereum, and eventually realized that I think Ethereum has a much faster network adoption than Bitcoin. There's more developers, there's more apps, there's more volume of people using it, even the volumes of it. So I started overweighting Ethereum. Then I wanted to get exposure to, because you get something called alt season, which is anything other than Bitcoin tends to outperform in the teeth of a bull market. So I thought, okay, I want exposure to that, but I have no idea what to buy. So I just took an equally weighted basket of 10 different large protocols, exchanges, DeFi, broad mix, and just blindly put those on without, no things. I'd also written about XRP quite a lot as well, because I also saw back in December with the news flow and the hatred around XRP from Bitcoin maximalists, that I could sense an opportunity in that too. And I figured that the probability of them winning the lawsuit was going to be reasonably high, with some sort of fine and settlement, and that therefore the risk reward was pretty explosive to the upside. So I did a bit of that as well, which I don't own currently any right now. And then I started layering in more macro bets on where I thought the space was going. So trying to be more intelligent than just a basket. I've still kept the basket. And my bets are moving towards the metaverse and social tokens, community tokens, which I think are going to be hugely disruptive business model. And I think the metaverse is where everything is going. So that's kind of how I played it. So I'm now roughly 25% Bitcoin, 55% Ethereum, and 20% in all the other stuff.